Yes, the same rabbit. The show doesn't waste symbolism any more than Artie wastes protein. First, the facts the episode all but underlines with a grease pencil. A rabbit raids Artie's backyard garden. He shoots it. Charmaine scolds him.
Sally just seated a couple.
Kitchen's closed.
He said they were supposed to go to the city, but they had car trouble.
A few episodes later, at closing time, Charmaine seats a last-minute couple because declining business is a luxury they can't afford.
They're gonna have to eat what I give them.
Artie, irritated but pragmatic, lays down a simple condition. They'll have to eat what I give them.
Arthur, a lot of people don't like rabbit.
He chooses rabbit. Charmaine, ever the realist, warns that many people don't like rabbit. Precisely the point. The continuity is pointed, not coincidental.
For money, why don't you get your friend Anthony Soprano to pay his tab? It's close to $6,000, Arthur.
The scene is a compact allegory for Artie's entire arc, learning to take pride in what he already has. His marriage, his craft, and a business held together with tape and stubbornness.
Something's got to keep the customers coming back.
Vendors aren't coming through, the books are bleeding, and yet here is an intruder from his own garden, dead by his own hand, ready to be transformed into dinner and cash. He turns an act of protection into inventory and draws a profit from it. Farm to table, yes, but with forensics. The rabbit is cast as a petty thief, no different in spirit from the mobsters he was wrong to admire, eager to cut corners, eager to take. It dies trying to steal from Artie. Artie, finally choosing himself, serves it to paying customers.
Sally just seated a couple.
One table won't save a faltering restaurant, but it is, for once, a clean, profitable move. Chicanery aside, it's a quietly lovely scene about a man regaining his self-respect. Call it the sacred and the profane. Kitchencraft elevated by necessity and principle, powered, incidentally, by natural gas. And then there's the endgame that the series affords to almost no one. A flicker of a happy ending. Artie pores over his Italian grandfather's old recipe book, and a visible spark returns.
My grandfather's way, only with Provençal elements I've been thinking about.
Back to basics. Back to the lineage that taught him to cook. He notices an old stain on the page. Memory does the rest. The moment lands as one of the show's more somber, tender beats. No speeches, just a craftsman remembering why the work mattered. Fine acting, and even finer restraint. As for that rabbit, the gallows humor writes itself. What was it, hoppin'? It must have crawled in the pan for warmth. Either way, it fed the diners and fed Artie's pride, which, for once, was the dish he most needed to serve. If Adriana had pulled Carmela aside that night and confessed she'd been talking to the FBI, it wouldn't have played out like a dramatic rescue mission. It would have been quiet, controlled, and deadly.
Used to be a guy got pinched, he took his prison jolt no matter what.
Carmela isn't stupid. She understands exactly what an informant means. Not just prison, not just scandal. It means agents at the door. It means Tony in cuffs. It means her house, her jewelry, her safety, her entire identity evaporating. And possibly worse. In that world, a rat doesn't just threaten one man. They threaten the ecosystem.
So, this man takes you to restaurants.
Her first instinct wouldn't be sympathy. It would be survival. Now, Carmela likes to see herself as moral. She clings to that image. So I don't think she'd march straight into Tony's office and say, Adriana's a rat.
It was a movie night with the girls. Adriana was very upset.
It would be subtler than that. She'd frame it in a way that lets her keep her hands clean. Something like, Artie was really upset tonight. Something's going on. You might want to talk to Christopher. She wouldn't say the words outright. She'd nudge, suggest, leave breadcrumbs. If Tony brushed it off, she'd push just enough. Maybe it is your business. Then she'd walk away and let the machinery of that world do what it always does.
What happened to Sal Bombenciero, Tom?
Because here's the thing. Carmela doesn't need to know the details. She just needs plausible deniability. Once Adriana goes into the program, or leaves town, Carmela can retreat into the comfortable lie she lives in every day. She would tell herself it had to be handled, that there was no choice, that Tony probably just scared her off.
F you.
They broke up, Liz. She ran off.
The FBI came to my home.
And even if she knew better, she'd never say it out loud. Would she try to convince Tony not to kill her? Maybe, but only in a cosmetic way. The kind where she says, "Can't you just make her leave?" So that later she can pretend she asked for mercy. Deep down, she would know there is no version of this where Adriana walks away alive, and she would choose her husband, her children, her house, every time.
That's not much now, of course, but it's a pretty flexible space.
The real tension is whether Carmela could live with having directly triggered it. That's heavier than her usual willful ignorance. Normally, she benefits from not knowing. In this scenario, she would be making a choice. But even then, I don't see her protecting Adriana. Not long term. The cost is too high. Carmela has already made her bargain with the devil years ago. This would just be another payment. In a strange way, she's lucky Adriana never told her. Because if she had, Carmela wouldn't just be complicit. She'd be responsible. And that's a harder thing to pray away. It's wild to think that out of everything Tony did, the decision that may have sealed his fate was a quick trip to Florida.
So you finally made the trip out here, huh?
When he reached out to little Carmine during the season 4 standoff with Carmine Sr., it felt like a small tactical move. But Johnny Sack was right.
In large measure, I blame you for this shit with little Carmine.
What the fuck did I?
By going down there, Tony legitimized little Carmine. He turned a sidelined son into a viable contender. That one move helped spark the season 5 power struggle, which spiraled into open conflict with Phil. And we all know where that road led. For a guy who survived shootings, indictments, and his own therapy sessions, it's almost funny that a polite sit-down in Miami may have done the most damage.
The fundamental question is, will I be as effective as a boss like my dad was?
And it ties back to that glorious little Carmine philosophy. The fundamental question is whether Tony would be as effective a boss as his father was. And he would be, even more so. But until he is, it's hard to verify that he thinks he'll be more effective. That line alone deserves its own wing in the Museum of Malapropisms, right up there with the precipice of an enormous crossroads. It even outshone Versailles. Very allegorical.
You're not gonna be happy.
The irony is that little Carmine, accidental poet laureate of organized crime, may have been the only one who really understood when to step back. By the final season, he was basically telling Tony to get out while he could. Meanwhile, Tony kept doubling down. A lot of it traces back to Tony B.
For the Joey Peeps thing. Not all of it.
Letting him take out Joey Peeps without immediate consequences cracked the door open. Tony S. might not have known for certain at first, but once Phil's brother was killed, there was no more ambiguity.
God rest his soul, man.
I'll tell you what fucking happened. This piece of shit's cousin puts...
At that point, the only move that could have contained it was swift and brutal. Instead, Tony hesitated. That hesitation hardened Phil. The resentment festered.
Paid a visit to Vito's Gumar Joe.
And when the Vito situation exploded, it poured gasoline on an already burning relationship. Phil's response wasn't just about Vito. It was layered with everything that came before, especially his rage over his brother. And if you really zoom out, maybe the worst decision happened way earlier.
As we both know, there's been an attempt on your life. You have enemies.
The FBI practically handed Tony an exit at the end of season 1. He could have flipped. It would have meant prison for a lot of people, sure, but it might have saved his family and arguably reduced the body count in the long run. Instead, he chose the life every time. Loyalty, pride, ego, whatever you want to call it. That's what makes the show so brutal. The biggest turning points aren't always dramatic gunfights or betrayals. Sometimes it's a conversation in Florida. Sometimes it's letting something slide.
Maybe we can motivate you to testify.
Sometimes it's refusing the one off-ramp that appears when you're still early enough in the game to take it. Very allegorical. Zero chance Jackie Jr. was ever a good quarterback. The guy's not exactly operating at a high level upstairs, and he's not some freak athlete either. That's a rough combo for a QB. At that position, you usually need to be sharp, athletic, or ideally both. You're telling me this kid is memorizing a full playbook, reading coverages, tracking where all 11 defenders are, and diagnosing a blitz in real time? Come on.
Angie Bumpancero said that Kevin told her that Jackie was smoking marijuana.
We literally see him getting worked by a little girl in chess, and I'm supposed to buy that he can scan a defense and adjust protections at the line? I don't think so.
I have to say, you were right, Tony. Jackie Jr. has really surprised me.
And anyway, he wasn't even a quarterback. He was a linebacker. In his one football scene with AJ, he's talking about reading the quarterback's eyes and giving defensive advice. That tracks way more. A linebacker reacting to what he sees is believable. Jackie Jr. as the guy making split-second strategic decisions for the entire offense? That's a stretch.
So what? He's a good kid.
To be fair, there's nothing in the show that says he wasn't at least a decent athlete. He's in shape. He works out. He spars. He looks like a typical high school starter at a physical position.
He's been a perfect gentleman.
Being bad at chess doesn't automatically mean you're bad at sports. I was pretty athletic in high school myself, and chess is still a complete mystery to me.
That Jackie was smoking marijuana.
So yeah, linebacker? Sure. Quarterback running a complex offense and reading blitz packages? Not buying it. Christopher's intervention is already one of the wildest scenes in The Sopranos, but I've always thought it would have gone to another level if Ralphie had been there. You put Ralph Cifaretto in that room with Christopher, and there's no way it stays a serious intervention for more than 30 seconds.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dominic.
They're both addicts, so Ralphie probably starts by half defending the drug use, twisting it into some warped philosophical argument.
What is this, a handsome contest?
At the same time, he'd be taking shots at everybody in the room. That's just who he is. He never misses a chance to turn chaos into stand-up comedy.
You out of control?
The minute Christopher starts roasting everyone, Ralphie would absolutely lose it laughing. And not just laughing, he'd pile on. Chris says, "The way you eat, you're going to have a heart attack by 50. Ralphie fires back with something like, "On the other hand, he was never eating less to begin with." He wouldn't be able to help himself.
Is that us the house next door barking?
Every insult would turn into a tagline. And by the end of it, Ralphie would somehow manage to get both Christopher and the entire room furious at him. You can practically see it. Chris charges at Ralphie, they start swinging, and everyone jumps in. Later, they'd claim they were only trying to hit Christopher, but Ralphie just got in the way. Total chaos. Completely on brand. Honestly, if Ralphie showed up high, I'm not convinced he'd have made it out of that intervention alive.
You were talking nonstop for 20 minutes.
That room was already a powder keg. Add Ralphie's ego and sense of humor, and it turns into a full-blown riot. He'd be tossing out lines like, "What, you're going to tell me you never pondered that?" Or calling the whole thing implorable just to needle someone.
No more weight remarks, Tony.
And if anyone brought up Tony's weight, Ralphie would probably shrug and say, "I never had a problem with Tony's eating." Then pivot into some twisted logic about how God made him handsome instead of rich because he was never poor to begin with. That's the thing about Ralphie. He'd undercut the seriousness, mock the therapy language, and push every button in the room. The scene is unforgettable as it is, but with him there, it becomes absolute mayhem.
Meadow told me it was Carmela's birthday.
It is so nice of
Carmela's birthday gifts might be one of the funniest, low-stakes moments in The Sopranos. AJ getting her the Matrix is peak AJ. He doesn't even pretend it's for her. No wrapping paper, because suddenly he's Captain Planet and it's bad for the environment. Meanwhile, it's clearly just a movie he wants to watch again. I can't even judge him. I bought my brother FIFA every single year for like 5 straight birthdays when we were teenagers. That gift was absolutely for me too. And then there's Meadow. She books a high-end spa day and includes herself on her parents' credit card. I put it on your card. Honestly, that's hilarious, but also kind of perfect. Carmela loves that kind of thing. A mother-daughter spa day is exactly her speed. If you're being generous about it, the real gift is the bonding time. Whether it's a spa or just a day at the park, that's what she'd actually care about. Plus, let's be real, it's Tony's money.
I'll put it on my card, okay? It's with my clothes.
Of course, I'll get the same strip.
Wealthy parents are not losing sleep over their kids spending their money on them. AJ's gift feels selfish in the most teenage boy way possible. Meadows feels self-aware in the most Meadow way possible. Both are on brand. And I will defend The Matrix a little. It's basically Star Wars for adults. A full hero's journey, just with leather coats and existential dread. And yeah, Ralphie's in it. Or at least every time I see Joey Pants in anything, I just see Ralph Cifaretto. Can't help it.
On your mother's birthday?
The whole thing is such a perfect snapshot of that family. Selfish, affectionate, tone-deaf, weirdly sweet, all at the same time. Matinee. I always feel like I'm in the minority on the Vito storyline, but it never fully landed for me the way it seems to for a lot of people.
First time here, try the Johnny Cakes. What's that?
The whole Vito in New Hampshire arc with Johnny Cakes sometimes felt a bit too neat, almost like a fantasy dropped into the middle of a much harsher show.
You're the night when you cut the power to the church. That was a real dick.
You've got this rugged, hyper-idealized firefighter, basically a leather-clad dream guy, falling for Vito with barely any build-up. I kept wondering what exactly he saw in him beyond surface-level charm, because the connection didn't feel especially earned on screen. At the same time, I get why people love it. There's something intentionally dreamlike about that town and that relationship. It's like Vito stumbles into this alternate life, where everything is calm, accepting, and just easier.
Oh, something could happen to you.
Johnny Cakes being almost too perfect actually works in that sense. He's not just a person. He represents everything Vito could have had. Stability, acceptance, even a kind of redemption.
The halfway fucking point.
The fact that Vito throws it all away, not because he's rejected, but because he can't handle the reality of a normal life, is what makes the whole arc tragic. And honestly, the show does a smart job contrasting that quiet, almost peaceful world with the ugliness back in New Jersey, where his sexuality is treated as something monstrous. It flips expectations a bit.
If Vito wanted to pursue that lifestyle, he should have done so quietly.
What actually makes Vito's life degenerate isn't who he's attracted to. It's the fact that he's been living as a violent, entitled parasite for years. That's the real rot. There are also moments in that storyline that are just hilarious in a very grounded way. Like Vito at work staring at the clock, waiting for lunch. It's such a small, relatable thing in a show full of mob drama.
Vito.
And then on the other end, you've got absurd, almost symbolic moments, like Phil literally coming out of the closet, which feels so on the nose it's funny. So yeah, I may not fully buy every part of the Johnny Cakes romance, but I can appreciate what the arc is doing.
I love you, Johnny Cakes.
It's weird, a little uneven, sometimes unintentionally funny, but also kind of sad when you step back and look at what Vito had in his hands, and why he couldn't hold on to it. Is there really anything left to say about The Sopranos? The show's been over for nearly 20 years, and it feels like every possible angle has already been covered. We've had deep analysis, endless debates, and more shitposts than anyone could count. Did Tony die? Was Vito actually on blood pressure medication? Did Phil really, all the big questions have been asked, answered, and then asked again. So what's left? Are we just at the point where everything's been picked clean?
I came too late for that.
Did we come in at the end of it? And if we did, would we even hear it when it finally fades out? Hi, Jack. Bye, Jack.
Hi, Jack. Bye, Jack.
Maybe it really is all a big nothing. Some days it feels like that. You sit down to write something, get halfway through a post, and then stop. What's the point? Someone's already said it, probably 50 times. So you delete it and move on. Alright, but you gotta get over it. Because yeah, maybe the well feels dry. Maybe the jokes have been recycled and the theories run into the ground. But then, you think about the people just discovering the show for the first time. New fans coming in, seeing it fresh, asking the same questions we asked years ago. And that's kind of the point. It keeps going. It's like that feeling when you see a part of yourself reflected back at you in someone else. The connection, the recognition. That's what keeps it alive. Not the posts themselves, but the people behind them. So maybe there isn't anything new to say. Maybe everything's been analyzed to death. But there's always someone hearing it for the first time. And if all else fails, yeah, there's always Chianese Giat-Father memes and Phil Leotardo quotes. Subscribe.